If I told you that one man once made so much illegal money that he had to literally weigh it instead of counting it, you'd probably think it's a myth. But this isn't fiction. This is the real story of a man whose empire became so large that, at one point, he was spending $2,500 every month just on rubber bands to tie his bundles of cash. A man whose business was so massive that even rats were eating millions of dollars of his profit because he had no place left to store it. Before we begin, let me give you a small hint. He wasn't born into wealth. He didn't come from a political family, and he didn't inherit anything. He built everything from nothing, using ambition, violence, and an unstoppable hunger for power. Today, we're stepping into the world of the most legendary, feared, and unbelievably rich crime boss in modern history. So sit tight, because the deeper we go, the more unbelievable it becomes. This is the real-life journey of Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria. And trust me, the truth is wilder than every movie, every Netflix show, and every legend you've ever heard. Pablo wasn't born a millionaire. He wasn't even born into a criminal family. He came into the world in 1949 in a small town in Colombia. His father was a humble farmer and his mother was a schoolteacher. And like most kids, Pablo had big dreams. But unlike most kids, his dreams didn't involve becoming a doctor or a pilot. He once told a friend something that would define the rest of his life. "I want to become rich, and I'll do whatever it takes." He began small, stealing tombstones, selling fake diplomas, dealing with car parts. By the time he was a teenager, he already understood one thing. In a country full of corruption, poverty, and weak law enforcement, there were shortcuts to power, and he planned to use every shortcut possible. Then came the turning point: cocaine. In the 1970s, cocaine wasn't the gigantic global industry it later became. But Pablo saw something no one else did. He saw that the entire world, especially the United States, was about to develop a taste for this new drug. He understood supply and demand better than most Wall Street traders. If Americans were willing to pay 50 or even 100 times the production cost for a tiny amount of powder, then whoever controlled the supply could become unimaginably rich. This was the birth of Pablo Escobar, the entrepreneur. Except this wasn't a tech startup. It was the beginning of a drug empire so big it would eventually supply 80% of the world's cocaine. He didn't build this empire alone. He formed alliances and built the Medellín Cartel, an organization that would soon become one of the most powerful criminal groups in human history. But Pablo wasn't just a businessman. He was a master of logistics. While most smugglers were hiding drugs in suitcases, Pablo bought airplanes, not one or two, dozens of them. He turned the skies into private highways. His pilots made so many flights that Pablo once joked he had more air traffic than the Colombian government. At the peak of his operations, he was earning more than $400 million every week. Yes, weekly. And you're right to ask, where do you even put that much money? Well, that became one of Pablo's strangest problems. He buried cash in fields, stuffed it in warehouses, hid it in walls. His brother later admitted they lost about $2 billion a year because rats were literally eating the money. Imagine earning so much money that losing $2 billion is just business as usual. That was Pablo's reality. But power always comes with enemies. And Pablo had a special strategy for dealing with enemies, something he called plata o plomo, silver or lead. In simple words, take the bribe or take the bullet. And this wasn't an empty threat. Judges, police officers, politicians, journalists, no one was beyond his reach. Once, a justice minister tried to stand up to him. Pablo didn't just kill him, he made sure the entire country understood the message. And people did. Because saying no to Pablo Escobar often meant your family wouldn't live to see the next sunrise. But Pablo wasn't only feared, he was loved by many. Somehow, he managed to become a criminal and a hero at the same time. He built houses for the poor, he gave money to the homeless, he created soccer fields, schools, and neighborhoods. People who had nothing now had everything because of him. They saw him as Robin Hood. And when the government tried to arrest him, thousands of locals would block the streets to protect him. In the world of crime, there are villains. But Pablo understood something much more powerful. If the people love you, the government can't touch you easily. And he used that love like a shield. Now, let's talk about some of Pablo's insane, almost unbelievable moments. One of the craziest stories happened when Pablo was hiding in the mountains with his family. It was freezing cold. His daughter was shivering. And Pablo, the billionaire drug lord, had no heating. So what did he do? He burned cash. And not just a little. According to his family, he burned around $2 million just to keep his daughter warm. Not gold, not wood, not furniture. He burned money, because to him, money was no longer money. It was just fuel. Another insane moment happened when Pablo was briefly arrested. You might imagine a prison cell with bars and guards, but Pablo's prison wasn't normal. He built his own prison, literally. He told the government, "Fine, I'll go to jail, but I'll design it myself." And they agreed. So he built a luxurious mansion on a hill, filled with games, a bar, a jacuzzi, and a giant football field. He called it La Catedral. When visitors came, they thought they were in a resort, not a prison. Pablo continued running his cartel from inside, held parties, brought in friends, and lived like a king. He even chose his own guards. No one could enter without his permission. That was Pablo. Even prison couldn't stop him. But the craziest story is this. Once, the Colombian authorities tried to move him to a real prison. Pablo didn't like the idea, so he simply walked out, called his men, and escaped. And what followed was absolute chaos. His cartel members, furious that their boss was threatened, caused destruction across the city. Bombings, shootings, riots. The entire country shook. One man caused more fear than an army. But power doesn't last forever. As Pablo grew richer, the enemies grew stronger. The Colombian government wanted him gone. The United States wanted him gone. And worst of all, other cartels wanted him gone. A group called Los Pepes formed. A deadly combination of his rivals, former friends, paramilitary groups, and even some rogue government forces. They hunted him mercilessly. His allies were killed. His money stashes were discovered. His communication lines were tapped. Slowly, the king was being cornered. Pablo went from billion-dollar mansions to hiding in cheap apartments, moving from roof to roof, constantly running. The man who once controlled the skies now had to run on foot. On December 2nd, 1993, the Colombian Special Forces tracked a phone call he made to his son. They traced the location to a house in Medellín. When they arrived, Pablo tried to escape across the rooftops. A gunfight broke out. Pablo was shot and killed. Some say he died in the shootout. His family believes he shot himself to avoid capture. The truth will probably never be known. So what happened to his empire? It collapsed. The Medellín Cartel fell apart. His rivals took over. His money, billions of dollars, was never fully found. To this day, treasure hunters in Colombia search jungles and farmlands looking for Escobar's hidden cash. Some farmers still dig up old barrels filled with money. In 2020, one man found $18 million buried under a house Pablo once owned. Imagine waking up, digging your field, and finding a small part of Pablo Escobar's fortune. Before we end, let's look at his wealth. At his peak, Pablo Escobar was worth an estimated $30 to $35 billion, adjusted to modern value. He was richer than the richest CEOs of his era. If he were alive today with that wealth, he'd still be among the richest people on earth. But despite all the money, all the power, and all the fear he created, he died running across rooftops, alone, with nothing but a gun in his hand. His life is the biggest reminder that money can build you an empire, but choices decide how long that empire survives. If you learned something valuable today and want more stories where history, power, and money collide in unbelievable ways, then make sure to subscribe and join us again. Your support helps us keep exploring the strange and shocking financial stories the world tries to forget. Until next time, stay curious, stay smart, and remember, empires built on fear never last forever.